Hello, contractors, and welcome to Toolbox for the Trades. My name is Jackie Aubel, and I am live here at Pantheon 2025. You may hear a little bit of murmuring, a little bit of mumbling in the background, but that's because we are in the thick of it at ServiceTitan's annual user conference. But trust me, you are not going to want to miss today's episode. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did. Kristen Deese, you are a virtual CFO of the trades. Welcome to Toolbox for the Trades, recording live at Pantheon 2025.
Yes.
I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited too.
I know, we're going to chat about some really fun CFO things, but before we do, I want to kick it off with an icebreaker like I always do. I would love to know, what song would be the soundtrack of your life?
Oh, goodness.
I know, it's a toughie.
That is a tough one. There is a Shania Twain song that I cannot think of the name of right now, but I've used it on walkout music occasionally.
Oh, nice.
So I would say I'm going to go with Shania Twain.
Okay,
But I don't have a
great.
specific song. How about that?
That sounds perfect. So you are actually filling in for your husband, who was supposed to meet up with me today.
Yes.
So I would love to hear the story of how you got into the trades and how you and your husband got to where you guys are today.
Yeah. So my husband is our serial entrepreneur of the family. And so
A lot of them here, by the way.
Yes, I know. There's a lot of them. And then there's a lot of us wives who are coming along for the ride, right?
Yeah,
That's
and
how
also
it goes.
become accidental, also C-suite members by
Right.
proxy.
That's
Yeah.
right. So probably almost 25 years ago, we got into home services originally through appliance installation.
Mm-hmm.
And then that kind of morphed over the years and turned into plumbing, and it turned into HVAC, and it turned into remediation and restoration, and just a couple of different businesses over the years. And so we've always just kind of run them together and bought and sold and did all kinds of wonderful things. And now we are spending our time helping contractors shorten the gap of the things that it took us forever to learn.
Sure, yeah.
So yeah, now we're serving contractors instead of homeowners.
I love that.
Yeah.
And it's one of my favorite things about the industry as a whole is I find that contractors are always so willing to help one another. Please don't make the same mistakes I did. Let me help you overcome this challenge, which is honestly like what this whole show is about. Yeah. So we're going to get into you as the role that you play as a fractional CFO, but I do know that Justin has a podcast, your husband.
Does. Yes.
And I would love to hear a little bit about that as well.
Yes, absolutely. So he's got a podcast called Freedom Blueprint. Mm-hmm. He does a combination of different things where, he'll interview other people in the industry, or he'll pop on and do a podcast just himself, or sometimes I'll hop on with him and we'll just have conversations about business and life. And it's really fun. He enjoys doing the podcast. He recently passed his 100th episode, which was like a big celebration.
A big milestone,
I know. So yes, that is Freedom Blueprint Podcast.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk to you because she's not really here. And so it was very kind of me to give him that exposure right at the top. But I want to get into your expertise. So you are a fractional CFO.
Yes.
What is that?
I went to college for accounting. So my degree is in accounting. And so in all of our businesses that we've always run, it was just natural for me to take the financial lane of the businesses. A couple of years ago, I kind of discovered that the numbers in general it's a big hole in the industry in terms of knowledge. A lot of business owners know their trade really, really well, but when it comes to the numbers, it's just a weak point. I started just offering some training and some guidance and just some higher level financial strategy with some business owners, and it kind of morphed into this fractional CFO. So you get the strategy and the knowledge and the education and experience, but because it's fractional, it's not a full-time salary, which a lot of the business owners in the trades can't afford until they get way big.
Yeah.
So I spend a lot of time just helping business owners get more comfortable with their numbers, and they learn so much more when they know their numbers better. They can make better decisions. They can make more money. So that's kind of the goal of it.
Got it. Yeah. So you're kind of like a fill-in until they get to a certain level where they can bring on someone full-time to truly help manage it.
Yeah. There's some training and stuff that I do too. So if they have a person that's in the business or they want to bring somebody in to do the accounting tasks, the business owners have a hard time training somebody how to do that because they don't necessarily know how to do it themselves.
Sure.
So I'll be like, hey, I'll take that person under my wing and train them up and then teach them how to do all the things to do a month end or whatever, so that the business owner doesn't have to worry about it. And then we do financial reviews on a regular basis just to get in the habit of looking at the numbers and talking about them and what do they mean and what's it telling you about your business.
I got it.
Yeah.
So tell me, what does that training look like? What does that entail? So you've got a business owner who's like, I know I'm not looking at my numbers. I know I'm not like analyzing them the way I should. I've got this great person. Maybe they were stellar CSR or a dispatcher, or they've been our marketing person. They're killing it, and they really want to move over to this side, but they don't really know what they should be looking at. What does that training look like?
So that scenario that you described is literally exactly how Virtual CFO started. So I was doing some more general business coaching with a client around like systems and foundations and stuff. And he had somebody on his team who wanted to get into the accounting side of things, but he didn't have any experience in it. But the business owner was like, he's got the characteristics for it. I just don't know how to train him. So he said, do you think you can do it? And I was like, yeah, sure. Because as any secondary entrepreneur, we're going to build that plane as we fly it. But basically, I kind of take that employee under my wing, work with them really intensely for about 3 months or so, get them through teaching them how to do all the things from entering all the transactions, doing all the exporting out of ServiceTitan and into their QuickBooks, getting all of that squared away, showing them how to do month end, take them through a couple of months of that, and then slowly back off and let them, kind of start taking it on their own, but then still provide that oversight.
Okay.
So that's literally how the Virtual CFO started a couple years ago. Was that scenario.
Almost like a tutor.
Yeah.
Kind of like, I'm going to show you how to do this, and then I'm going to review your work, and you're going to come to me with questions.
Yes, that's very much how it goes.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about what your typical customer looks like? Like, do you mainly deal with residential service and replacement? Do you do new construction, commercial? Or is it like if they're blue collar, if they're in the trades, doesn't matter?
Right. So definitely the trades, home services in general. So it's not necessarily just HVAC and plumbing. I do garage doors too, and some landscaping and different things. So just home services in general. It is ideal when they're with ServiceTitan and QuickBooks Online, just because those are the two softwares that I can like roll up sleeves and step into the easiest. There's a little bit of a sweet spot in terms of company size, but it's never too early to start looking at numbers. So even if you're a $500,000 company and it's difficult to justify having any kind of third party anything, that doesn't mean that we don't want to pay attention to our numbers. But I would say that sweet spot is probably like $1.5 million up to about 10. Once they're getting up to the $10 million range and up past that, they're either getting acquired by private equity, or they're probably ready to start bringing in some of those higher level financial positions in-house. What's so interesting is I talk to business owners all the time who might have a $5 million company, and they'll still come to me and say, I don't know anything about my numbers. And it's almost like it was an accidental business growth.
Like they sneezed and they made $5 million.
Right. I know. Like, that's very impressive. And let me show you how you can make more money on the bottom line.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I thank you for kind of describing what the sweet spot is. That's more or less what I assumed. Tell me, what are some of the more common things that you see? And try to get as specific as possible.
Yeah. The things that we kind of tackle the most is going to be getting your financials departmentalized, especially if you provide an install and a service. So we want to be able to get a gross profit margin for your install department and for your service department.
Okay.
Usually our targets are different, our labor and material percentages are different and everything. So we want to separate those out so that we can pinpoint areas that are places for opportunity. Usually we've got people who aren't departmentalizing, or they're doing it, but it's not really consistent or accurate. They may not know what their gross profit margin is or what should be considered part, like inside or outside of the gross profit margin.
Sure.
So
a lot of times, an example of that, by the way?
So like your gross profit margin is going to be what's left after you pay for the technician labor and the materials to do the job. There's some other pieces of the puzzle that can be argued either way, right? So like if we pay a subcontractor or if we have equipment rental or different things like that. But the two big pieces are going to be the labor and materials. Everything after that is overhead. So the next biggest question that comes up often is, what is the industry standard for XYZ expense, and where am I sitting compared to the industry? So, what is the industry standard for advertising spend, or for labor, materials, gross profit margin, overhead, all that kind of stuff? Everybody wants to know how they're doing compared to how the rest of the industry is doing.
Of course, yeah.
So there's a lot of time spent on not only educating around that, but also kind of helping them understand when it's appropriate to compare themselves to the industry and when it's more appropriate to compare themselves to their own performance. Sometimes we have to be a little bit careful when we are comparing ourselves to the industry, because they might be measuring things differently. And so if we're not comparing apples to apples, We want to make sure that we are not setting ourselves up for unrealistic expectations if we're measuring it differently.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So speaking of those industry standards, is that information that you get in your role because you're coaching so many businesses and you have so many contacts, so you can collect those benchmarks?
Yes. And I spend a lot of time in networking groups, mastermind groups, events like this, talking to people, going to breakouts, just learning what everybody else is doing and what everybody else is investing in terms of business growth and all that kind of stuff. And yes, I look at hundreds of financials. So being able to see, what other people within that realm are doing is extremely helpful to be able to go back to the business owners and say, well, your advertising is 19%, industry average is 10. So let's look at where are you putting your money and are you getting the return that you need to be getting on it?
Amazing.
Yeah.
I would love it. And you can take a moment to think about this if you need it. I would love it if you could get super specific about an example that is really memorable to you.
Yes.
Like a moment you had with a client where it kind of just, you could almost literally see the light bulb turning on top of their head. I would love to hear that if you've got one.
So I love the aha moments. It's literally why I do this, to be able to take somebody who really feels lost and overwhelmed by their numbers and then break it down super simply and have them come out the other side feeling empowered and confident and they understand it. I love that. It's literally why I do this. Not too long ago, I was working with a client who HVAC summertime, right? He should have been making a ton of money in the HVAC summertime season. And he came to me working in a loss. And we're like, oh, okay, well, let's take a look and we'll dig into the numbers or whatever. And we realized that pricing needed to be adjusted. He adjusted pricing and immediately started seeing return on the bottom line. And then a couple months later, he said, I thought I knew my numbers, but I had no idea what I was looking at. So I thought I knew it, but I didn't. And now I feel like I understand what I'm looking at. And now it's fun to look at numbers because it's fun to look at the numbers when we're doing well. It's so much more fun to sit down and pick through your P&L when there's a profit at the bottom. It's not fun to do it when we're operating at a loss and we don't understand why.
Yeah. So. I can imagine that, to be honest, I'm speaking from personal experience. I don't own a business, but just even managing my personal finances, I really try to be good on it. I try to review all of my costs. I just check them once a year and I'm fine. I try to look week over week, but actually right now, we've been in Pantheon planning and prep. I feel like I'm throwing my credit card at everything. And I'm just I'm getting an alert from my bank, you're over your limit. I'm like, so how do you, because I feel like in my time doing this show, finances are always such a personal thing. There's so much shame around there. There's so much there's just so much gook in there. And so how do you shepherd owners and operators into don't worry, we're going to get through this. Talk to me a little bit about your process there.
First of all, it is extremely vulnerable situation to open up the door to your finances and show somebody that you're struggling.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of courage to do it. What I will say about it is pretty much every financial struggle that these business owners are coming to me with, we've been there. We've been trying to figure out how to make payroll the night before it was going to get withdrawn out of the account. We've been trying to figure out how to pay the bills when there's no money in the account. So we have certainly been through the hardships that these folks are coming to me with. So there's definitely a certain amount of sympathy that goes along with that and no judgment whatsoever because, been there, done there, got all the shirts. And it's just a matter of saying, okay, here's what's happening and let's figure out how to fix it. Yeah. And then let's get you turned around.
Yeah. So you mentioned private equity.
Yes.
Once people hit 10 million, they either get acquired by private equity or
sooner. Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that you have now witnessed this. You've probably had to help folks really present their books. I know that's a giant part of the private equity acquisition process. They want to see a buttoned up and tight financial book of business. So what does that look like from your end?
Well, so we've been through it ourselves. We partnered with private equity in our most recent home service business. I've been through the due diligence process with the CFO of the private equity company. And so from that standpoint, I kind of, have been through all of that, which was extremely intense. So then on the flip side of that, then now that I kind of have an idea of what they're looking for and what they want, then the first thing I do when I start with a client is say, what is your exit strategy? Because that kind of helps us shape what we want, not only the finances to look like, but it starts to determine what certain decisions in the business need to look like based on what the exit strategy is. So if the exit strategy is we want to sell to private equity, then we start as early as we possibly can to try to make those books look like what we think private equity is going to want to see.
Got it.
The earlier we can start with that, the more history that we can show in that format, the more appealing the business is going to look to private equity. There's been several clients that I've worked with who have sold to private equity. I lose a client when that happens, but I'm okay with it. It's a little bit of a feather in the cap to be able to take a client who didn't know anything about numbers, and then a couple of years later, they turn around and sell to private equity for way more than they could have done it, prior to that. So that's fun.
Yeah. That is really, really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you've sold to private equity yourself. And when when you and Justin did that, did you choose to just exit and start your own thing?
No.
Or did you stay on board?
Yeah, there was an earn-out period.
Sure.
I did not stay in the earn-out period, but Justin and Chris, they did. Chris more even than Justin did. So there was an earn-out period for that, which actually worked out really well from the team standpoint because all the team stayed intact. All the morale was good. The culture was good. It was just a really good experience all the way around. So that was fun to be able to do.
That is
not all people want to do an earn-out when they sell. Some people want to be like, I'm done. Like I want to retire and be done. But if you choose the earn-out period, it's a neat transition, neat handoff. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, you said you've had some clients now who have partnered, who have sold. Mm-hmm. Given that you've gone through it yourself, you've seen some clients go through it, what advice would you have for anybody who's thinking about doing it someday?
So if you are going to partner with private equity and participate in an earn-out period, I would say the biggest piece of advice is be prepared for the fact that change happens slower. So when you are a business owner and you're the only person calling the shots and you want to change something, you just change it. But when you are private practice with or partnered with a larger entity, you still have to run things up the chain of command, and there's more people involved, and it just is a little bit slower. So you just have to be a little bit more patient than what you would have had to do if you were running on your own. But on the flip side of that, you get so much more support than what you would have when you're on your own, even if it's just moral support. So that is extremely helpful to be able to have that. So that would probably be the biggest thing, is just to get used to, be ready for that transition.
Be ready to have a boss for the first time in
a long time.
A very long time.
Yes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
When we were setting up for today's show, we were talking off mic about how AI is really at the forefront of this conference.
Yes.
And you were talking about Atlas, specifically ServiceTitan's AI that we debuted at Pantheon this year.
Yeah.
From a financial perspective, right? Owners, operators who come to this conference like Pantheon, they meet with all these different vendors, they see all these new products that are now available to them. How do you recommend they take a look at their books and they decide, hey, what can I actually afford in this moment, and plan for that adoption? Because obviously new technology costs money, and it's going to take a second before ROI starts kicking in. So what's your advice in that regard?
Well, and it's not only the cost of the product, it's the cost of paying the people to learn how to do and implement the product as well.
Change management,
all the things. So when you come out of a conference like this, you usually have like 20 things that you want to add to the processes of your business. And so I think the best thing to do at first would just be to prioritize what's going to create the biggest ROI, or what's going to solve the biggest problem that you have at the moment. I was watching Vahe's keynote yesterday, and they were doing the demonstrations on Atlas, and the coolest part about it, which I think was in the Field Pro, was the statistics, the sales statistics and the conversions and all of the different things that are like happening in a split second. All of that information, and to be able to gather more detailed, more custom information is huge from the AI perspective, which I think is really cool. It's really easy to get the shiny object syndrome when we're at places like this.
Oh, so easy, especially when all of the people running the booths are so friendly and nice.
I know. So, it kind of has to come back to ROI, and do we have the team and the bandwidth to be able to actually fully implement this so that we can get the ROI out of it that it's designed to do? So nothing is going to implement itself.
Yep.
Right. And so we have to make sure that we have the bandwidth in order to be able to do it, because if we jump into a new service or a new software or a new add-on or whatever, and we're not implementing it properly, it's not the fault of the company. It's kind of on us that we're not implementing it. We're not putting the bandwidth to it that needs to happen. So it's just as much physical money as it is are we going to be able to, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Has that come up in your audits with folks of looking at their spend and being like, oh my God, you are spending so much money on this thing. Are you actually using it and being able to find cost savings there?
100%. A lot of times, honestly, it shows up in like the smaller subscriptions of, you know, I signed up for a 10-day free trial and forgot to cancel it 2 years ago.
Yep.
Haven't we all been there? I know. It happens in our personal finances too. And entrepreneurs are notorious for doing the free trials and forgetting to cancel. Our financial reviews, we go line by line and we're looking at cost by cost by cost. And we do hone in on what are we spending from an overhead standpoint and are we utilizing it? If we're not utilizing it, do we want to, or do we need to kind of move on from the item and take it off the books?
Yeah. I think that's so interesting, and also something that I imagine is part of your prescribed how to review the finances and make sure that business is in a healthy place.
That's right.
I would love to know, a prompt I often ask people when we prepare for this show is if you could take a megaphone to the industry so they could hear you and everything you have to say. I'm sure you have some hot takes that you would like to drop. Yeah. And I would love to hear, like, if you could take a megaphone to the industry, you're basically doing it right now. What would you like to say to them?
Know your gross profit margin. Not only know what your gross profit margin is, but know where you should be operating for your industry. And then net profit trumps revenue.
Yep.
There's been a lot of times where I'll come into a company who's generating a ton of revenue at the top, but they're making like 5% at the bottom. And you're like, I mean, great, that's not a negative, but it's also like a little too thin for comfort, right? So if we get super clear and kind of refine a little bit, even if we generate less money at the top, if it's 3 times more on the bottom, that's still a win.
Yeah.
A big win. The net profit, I would say, trumps revenue. And it's easier to generate revenue than it is to generate net profit.
You also mentioned that your preferred tech stack for contractors is ServiceTitan. Thank you so much.
Yes.
And QuickBooks Online.
Yes.
So if you were to quickly glance at someone's QuickBooks Online and their ServiceTitan, what are some KPIs or numbers that you automatically laser into because you want to see what's going on?
Yeah. So from the QuickBooks standpoint, I always want to jump in and make sure that they're using their business units correctly. And then I want to make sure that their business units are mapped to QuickBooks correctly. There's a relatively strategic process that I kind of go through from the mapping standpoint that helps them make their QuickBooks super easy to navigate when they're looking over their reports. So I kind of start there. From a KPI standpoint, we spend a lot of time on the main modular dashboard of ServiceTitan looking at revenue in ServiceTitan and making sure that it's matching to their revenue in QuickBooks. And sometimes there's just some tweaks to processes that we need to make in how they're using ServiceTitan in order to get it to match correctly. Before we even get too deep into the numbers themselves, there's just a handful of things in the ServiceTitan to QuickBooks communication that we just double check and make sure it's all hooked up right and operating the way it's supposed to. Then once we do that, we jump into the QuickBooks side of things and start. There's a lot of times that we just do a little bit of reorganizing, a little cleaning up, let's make this a little simpler, which is, it's kind of par for the course with the accounting industry in general, because anybody who looks at a set of books from the accounting lens, everybody's going to want to rearrange it the way they think it needs to be rearranged. And I totally get that.
Totally.
So there's a lot of times that once I get into somebody's books, you can see remnants of how other people have gone in and set it up over time. So we just try to clean it up, make it as easy to understand and comprehend as we can. And then we jump in and start looking first at labor materials percentage. The gross profit margin and the labor materials percentage specifically is going to tell us, it's going to start shining the light on where there's opportunities to tighten up. It might be on the labor side, it might be on the material side. If it's on both, it might be a pricing situation. We kind of also at the same time lean into what's our booking rate, what's our conversion rate, what's our average ticket. Are we using ServiceTitan well enough that we can get those numbers accurately? If we're not, cool, let's figure out how to use ServiceTitan better so that we can get an accurate booking rate and an accurate conversion rate and all that kind of stuff, because we look at the big picture monthly numbers in QuickBooks, but it comes down to a job by job management, and knowing those individual KPIs will translate to QuickBooks at the end of the month. But we can't do anything about the month that already closed out. We need to be dealing with the jobs that we're working with right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Kristen, this was such an informative podcast. I mean, I have to say, like, I could tell you have passion about this topic. You break it down in a really easy way. As someone who struggles with financial stuff herself, I found it really easy to follow. So I'm sure the folks listening really appreciate it. If people want to get in touch with you or if they want to find out more, where can they find you?
So they can go to KristenDeese.com.
DEESE?
Yep, KristenDeese. And my email address is Kristen@KristenDeese.com.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Kristen, thank you so much for joining Toolbox for the Trades. I hope you enjoy the rest of Pantheon.
Thank you for having me.